Earlier this month, the government ordered that all schools be closed as a precautionary measure during the current COVID-19 pandemic. As you now know, a 30-day nationwide state of emergency has since been announced. With all that time where Belizeans will be at home, it's important that we occupy ourselves with healthy and uplifting activities. Cooking, gardening, and sewing are great examples, but we here at Colorblind Multimedia would love to encourage you to take up reading. Reading feeds the mind and stimulates the soul. It's a very calming distraction during these stressful times. With that said, we bring to you Colorblind Book Club. With Belize being such a vibrant, socially diverse, and culturally rich country, we're probably the best setting for any story to be based on. Actually, we have a whole bunch of Belizean writers and storytellers who have produced masterpieces. In today's edition of Belizean Book Club, I'm very excited to welcome Mr. Ian Vasquez, an accomplished Belizean writer. Welcome to CB Book Club.
Happy to be here.
Thank you. It's nice for you to join us. Mr. Vasquez, kindly tell us a little about your childhood and life experience in Belize before you migrated.
I grew up in Kings Park in Belize City. I went to St. Catherine's Elementary, then went to St. John's High School and St. John's College. I always have to say high school when I tell people up here where I'm from or what school I went to. Because so I went to St. John's College, and I had a beautiful childhood. You know, I just spent so much time on the streets. We had so much freedom in Belize compared to kids here, growing up here. I had so much freedom, and that's something that enriched my life and gave me so much experiences that I could mine for writing. So yes, growing up in Belize, I keep telling my kids, growing up in Belize was something special.
Okay, Mr. Vasquez, so when did you develop your love for writing, and what or who contributed to your skills?
Well, I've always been a pretty good writer, but I think I really developed when I was in college. I for the first time I met people and professors and teachers who not only encouraged me, but basically showed me what good writing was like and what it takes to become a good writer, and the dedication and the skills that have to be honed over time, and also to be a good reader. So I think that that's a seminal period in my life, between maybe age 18 to about age 24, when I started knowing the world in a different way, thinking differently, and then learning to get it done on paper by thinking clearly about it, and then reworking. So that period of my life was very important for me as a writer.
And so what is it that you do now? What do you do for a living?
Well, I spent so many years as a journalist. I was an editor, a copy editor at different newspapers, at the Miami Herald. Now I'm living in the Tampa Bay area, and for many years I was an editor at the Tampa Bay Times, which was formerly the St. Petersburg Times. But as you know, the newspaper industry has sustained some serious damage over the years, and I was a victim of downsizing. And so now I am doing, I'm a marketing writer and editor for an internet marketing firm here in Tampa.
Okay, that's great. It's pleasant. It's good to know that you're still practicing your craft. You're still getting better. So, Mr. Vasquez, we now know that you've written 2 books. Both books were written based on Belizean characters and Belizean setting. Can you kindly tell our viewers about your books? Can we start with In the Heat?
Sure. Actually, I've written 3 books actually, but I'll start with In the Heat. In the Heat was something I'd started for years. I'd been working off and on. I wanted to write a novel set in Belize. In fact, I couldn't write well if I didn't set my novel in some place that I knew well. And as you know, Belize is such a rich setting, such interesting characters, and the density and the tightness of Belize. You know how gave me access to so many people, and over time I kept writing, and that was the first book that I finished. That was the first novel I finished, and I knew it wasn't very good. Your first novel isn't going to be that good, but I had to rework it over time. I had editors I trust, had readers I trusted, and the novel took about a year to write the first draft, and about 2 or 3 years to even though it's a slim novel, 2 or 3 years to get to the point where I thought it was publishable. That the second novel and third novel were faster, and because I knew my craft better, I knew what things to expect. But they weren't necessarily easy, but still, I learned so much from writing that first novel. But does that answer your question?
Yes, you did. What was your inspiration for In the Heat?
In the Heat is about a boxer, and my uncles were boxers in Belize. They boxed maybe like in the 50s or I think the 40s or 50s, something like that. And for a time, they would always tell me stories about what it was like. I grew up loving boxing, so the first things I read were boxing magazines, and that's the first thing that I could remember reading from cover to cover. And so it was almost like a natural progression for me to write about boxing. But as I became a storyteller, I wanted to center around my love for boxing around a character, and so it grew out of that fascination with what boxing requires, the demands of the trade, and centered on a character who became a accidental detective, because around that time I was reading a lot of noir and detective fiction. So I wanted to write something that was that blended the two, boxing and a mystery novel or thriller. It's not really about boxing, and what I can say, it's actually more about Belize and than it is about boxing.
I've actually been reading it, and I would be curious to ask if Rianne was found and did they get the money back, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure if you would leak that out to me, but I'll get back to that. So, Mr. Hooligan, can you give us a brief about Mr. Hooligan?
Actually, Mr. Hooligan is actually my I think it's my most accomplished novel, and it's actually the novel that I had that was the most fun to write. Mr. Hooligan is about a drug runner, and I like novels where the main character, the protagonist, is actually an anti-hero of sorts, and Mr. Riley James, who is Mr. Hooligan in this, was a sort of a ruffian. Now, growing up in Belize, I didn't experience what kids experience here in the States, where you have zoning, you have the suburbs, and then you have the city. In Belize, you have access to everything the city offers, basically. So a lot of my friends were kids who were probably not some saying. I would say I didn't grow up privileged at all, but had it rougher than I did, and so they experienced life differently than I did, and so you grow up with, as I like to say, with one foot in the street in Belize, and so giving birth to a character like that wasn't very hard. At the same time, I had to make him likable. So that was a challenge in creating Riley James, who was a drug runner and a criminal, but someone you want to root for.
Okay, that sounds fun. I haven't gotten to that one as yet. But you had mentioned a third book. Can you give us the name of that book and a briefing of that book as well?
Sure. In the order in which I wrote the books, In the Heat came first, and then my second book was called Lonesome Point. And that was a book that was currently set in this area where I live, in the Tampa Bay area. It began in Belize and ended in this area. I wanted to basically give something to the reader that was not Belize. That was something of life experience, my life experience elsewhere. Lonesome Point is a slim novel, and it's actually the one that took the longest to write and gave me the most problems. It's about the fallout from a crime that occurred in Belize, and as the characters left and migrated elsewhere, that problem from the crimes committed in Belize followed them. But Lonesome Point is the one that's probably the most challenging for some readers, in the sense that they can't see where the story is going, and that's the one that I still get questions about, actually.
Okay, and are you currently working on any new books? Or do you have plans to release a new book?
Publishing it can be a tough business. So because of my sales and current trends, I find it challenging to publish my next book. I've written a couple books since then, and right now I'm in the process of trying to sell one. I've moved on to a different agent, and the agent is shopping that novel around right now.
Okay, so I've checked and I saw your books on Amazon. Is that the best place to purchase them and download them, or are they available anyplace else?
They would. Amazon would probably be the best place, and I'm happy now that with my books out of print, you can still get them on Kindle. And I'm sure you also with Amazon too. There's so many independent booksellers that sell through Amazon. You can also get them through a bookseller linked to Amazon. But if you have a Kindle or some other device like that, you can download my books like that.
I know that COVID-19 cases are growing in Florida. How are you and your family keeping safe and occupied during this pandemic?
Well, we all are working from home right now. My wife is a teacher, and she has to, schools are shut down until, in this area of Florida, actually in all of Florida, until May the 1st. I'm working from home. I've been working from home for 2 weeks now, and we're practicing social distancing. And just trying to keep busy. We'll take my dogs for walks, going out in the yard, doing some yard work. But it's a state we have in Florida, a safer at home order. So that's how I'm doing it. Trying to stay as safe as possible and keep myself busy, and I'm reading.
So can you leave our viewers with any encouragement? Can you recommend a book for them to read? Anything before you leave us?
Well, I would tell them to read. If I'll be completely honest, I'll tell them read Mr. Hooligan. I think they would have a lot of fun reading that book.
Thank you, Mr. Vasquez. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
I encourage our viewers to check out In the Heat and Mr. Hooligan. They're both great reads. Until next time, stay busy, stay safe, and stay healthy.